All right, so today we're diving into barefoot shoes. You've probably seen them around, those
Yeah.
minimalist designs
Yeah.
kind of popping up everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
And you probably heard, like, some people say they're miracle cures.
Right.
Other people are saying, like, these things wrecked my feet.
Yeah.
So we are going to try to go deep on this today. We got articles, personal stories, expert opinions, like the whole thing. So
It's interesting how polarizing they've become.
Mm.
Like you're saying, like some people are like, this is amazing, and some people are like, this is a disaster.
yeah.
I think there's this like intuitive appeal to the idea
Well,
of a more
perfect.
natural way of moving.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, like our feet are also
All right.
not exactly like,
Let me jump
we've adapted to shoes, let's be honest. Like we've worn shoes for a long time.
Like, this is true. This is true.
So it's not such a simple equation.
Yeah. Well, so let's back up just a little bit,
All right.
because I think, to understand the debate at all, you kind of have to like start with the basics.
Right.
Like, what are these shoes? What makes them different? Because I think there's some confusion.
Yeah.
Some people think like any flat shoe with no arch support is a barefoot shoe.
Right.
That's not really what we're talking about.
No, it's true. It's not just about being flat. It's really about mimicking that
Nice.
barefoot experience as much as possible.
Yeah.
So we're talking about shoes that have really thin, flexible soles, so you can actually
Okay.
feel the ground beneath your feet.
Oh, I see.
Wide toe boxes
Okay.
to let your toes splay naturally instead of being all cramped up.
Yeah. No more squeezing.
And no more squeezing. Exactly. And that zero drop from heel to toe, so your foot is actually level.
Okay. So no cushy support.
Right.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
So we're taking away the support.
Yeah.
Before we get into all of that, like, are these good? Are these bad? All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I am really fascinated by some of these stories that you've pulled.
Yes.
Because it's like, it almost seems like
Yeah.
barefoot shoes work until they don't.
Yeah.
Like there's this real range, right,
There is.
of experiences that people are having.
Yeah, and it's really all over the map. Like, on the one hand, you have someone like Cheyenne,
Yeah.
who was incredibly active, weightlifting, hitting 10,000 steps a day, like
Right.
the works, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, she's sidelined by this like debilitating foot pain.
Oh, no.
Couldn't walk.
Wow.
And it took her 2 years.
2 years.
2 years and multiple doctors
Wow.
to finally figure out what was going on.
That is a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time to be suffering.
So what was it?
It turned out that she had something called capsulitis, which is like an inflammation of the ligaments in the foot, and neuromas. So those are like the benign growths of nerve tissue, often between your toes.
Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. Painful stuff.
So 2 years, she finally gets a diagnosis. What happens?
So she ends up needing surgery.
Oh, wow.
And then, get this, during her recovery,
Yeah.
her doctor actually recommends
Wait,
barefoot shoes
what?
along with toe spacers
Interesting.
to kind of like realign her toes and some specific exercises. But yeah.
So even after surgery, you're thinking like, oh, you're going to need more support.
You would think, right?
But it's like, no, let's go minimalist.
It was all about like retraining those foot muscles,
No.
working on her gait, getting that more natural movement back.
And it works.
And it worked.
Really?
Yeah. So a year later, she's back to lifting. She's walking miles, no pain.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's incredible.
Okay, but then we have Nick.
Right.
And Nick is like the sort of the cautionary tale here.
Yeah, Nick was like, he was all about barefoot shoes. Like, loved them, embraced the whole minimalist thing
Okay.
for years. But then things kind of took a turn.
Oh,
And I think his case really brings up this important point about environment.
okay.
So Nick loved these shoes, but he lived in New York City.
Right.
Concrete, sidewalks.
Hardwood floors.
Yeah, all those, yeah, exactly. All those hard surfaces
Yeah.
that our feet, weren't really designed to handle without some kind of protection.
Right. It's one thing if you're, walking on the beach.
Exactly.
It's another thing if you're, in the concrete jungle.
Exactly. And so over time, it took a toll.
Right.
So he starts developing, toe deformities. He's got calluses, blisters,
right.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And ends up with chronic foot pain. And, sees a podiatrist, and the podiatrist is basically like, yeah, these shoes, they
Yeah.
cause damage.
So, like, I guess the question is, are barefoot shoes only for certain lifestyles?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right, right.
And it's something that a lot of podiatrists are, like, really grappling with these days.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, you've got Cheyenne on one hand, you've got Nick on the other.
Right, exactly. How do you make sense of that?
So how do we make sense of it?
I think that's where, we have to turn to the expert opinions
Right.
because it's clearly not, as simple as some people might think.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, barefoot shoes are good or barefoot shoes are bad,
Yeah.
It's much more nuanced than that.
Right.
There are a lot of factors at play.
Totally. So let's bring in those experts.
Okay.
I mean, I'm seeing a lot of podiatrists
Yeah.
who are, expressing some pretty serious reservations
Yes,
about this whole barefoot shoe trend.
definitely. And it seems like there are some like pretty consistent concerns
Yeah.
that are coming up
About
that
the-
we should unpack.
Let's do it. So when we talk about expert opinions,
Right.
it seems like a lot of podiatrists are expressing some reservations about barefoot shoes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because on the one hand,
Yeah.
I think most podiatrists would agree there could be some potential benefits
Right.
to these types of shoes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're seeing a lot of people coming in with injuries
Right.
that seem to be related to minimalist footwear.
Okay, so what are those concerns? Like, what are the big ones?
So a really big one is arch support, or rather like the lack of arch support.
Right, because we're so used to it.
Exactly, exactly. We're so used to having at least a little bit of support,
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a super supportive shoe, most traditional shoes do have some kind of arch. And so, our feet get used to that.
Right, and then if you have like flat feet or really high arches, I imagine
Exactly.
it's even more of a consideration.
It is. It can really exacerbate those problems. Because, if you think about it, like that arch support, it helps to distribute your weight evenly
Right.
across your foot. And when it's not there,
Right.
it can put extra stress on certain areas, like your plantar fascia.
And that's that band of tissue on the bottom of your foot.
Exactly. It runs from your heel to your toes.
Right.
And that can get inflamed. It can get really painful.
Yeah. Plantar fasciitis?
Exactly. And it can even throw off your gait,
Right, because it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's not just your feet.
Right. It can impact your knees, your hips, even your back, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so lack of arch support. What else?
So another big one is cushioning. Or the lack thereof, right?
Yeah, or the lack thereof. Because again, like these shoes are all about that feel the ground experience,
Right.
which is great in theory.
In some situations.
In some situations, exactly. But,
Your body's not used to it.
exactly. You're suddenly taking away that cushioning that your body's used to, that your joints are used to.
Right, because most shoes, even if they're not like super cushy,
Right.
they've got some level of cushioning.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And so you're just like, all of a sudden,
It's like a shock to the system.
yeah. So
So then what happens?
that increased impact
Right.
can lead to all sorts of problems.
Okay.
Stress fractures are a big one.
Oh, no.
Achilles tendonitis,
Mm-hmm.
plantar fasciitis, we talked about that.
Right.
Like it can really take a toll on your body.
Okay, so I'm sensing a theme here. Like, maybe don't just throw out all my shoes and go full barefoot overnight.
Yeah, no, that is
Probably not a good plan.
not the best approach.
Okay, so what is the best approach? Like, if someone is thinking about trying these shoes, what do they need to know?
I think the key is really to ease into it.
Okay.
Don't go cold turkey.
Okay.
Start with short periods.
Okay.
Like maybe wear them around the house for a little bit.
Okay.
And gradually increase the amount of time
Okay.
that you're spending in them.
So kind of like training for a marathon. You don't just go out and run 26 miles.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
gradually building up that strength and that tolerance.
Okay, so start slow, gradually increase. What else?
And then, along with that,
Mm-hmm.
strengthening your feet is really important.
Oh, that's interesting. Because you think like, well, I'm going barefoot to strengthen my feet, but it's like, you've got to...
Well, right.
Yeah.
You've got to prepare your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because,
Right.
again, we've
Weaving
been kind
through.
of like weakening our feet for years
Right.
by wearing shoes that do so much for us.
Right. Right.
So there are a lot of great exercises
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can do to kind of help prepare those muscles.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop. What are we doing?
So, we talked about toe spacers.
Mm-hmm.
Those can be really helpful for just like improving toe mobility.
Yeah. Toe lifts are great. So you're basically just lifting and lowering your toes,
Oh, okay.
keeping your heel on the ground.
Gotcha.
Balance exercises are great.
Okay.
Like standing on one leg, walking heel to toe.
Oh, interesting. So these are all things that even if someone's not going to switch to barefoot shoes,
Right.
probably good for you.
They're good for you, yeah.
Okay.
They're good for everybody because, most of us have kind of lost
Right.
a little bit of that natural foot strength and mobility.
Right. From being in shoes all the time.
Exactly. So, anything you can do
Yeah.
to kind of like work those muscles is good.
Now, are there certain environments where you should be extra careful?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, should I maybe skip a rocky hiking trail?
Yeah, I would say, like, especially when you're first transitioning,
Yeah.
choose your surfaces wisely.
Okay.
Start with something a little softer and more forgiving,
Okay.
like grass, trails, even a treadmill. And then as your feet get stronger, as you get more used to it,
Mm-hmm.
you can gradually work your way up
Yeah.
to, harder surfaces like concrete.
So I'm hearing, like, the big theme here is listen to your body.
Yes.
Right. Don't ignore pain
100%. That's the most important thing.
because your body's trying to tell you something.
Exactly.
Right. If something hurts, it's probably not good.
Right. Your body's remarkably adaptable.
Yeah.
But it needs time
Right.
to adjust.
But everybody's different.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that's what we're seeing with these stories.
Right.
Like Cheyenne did great.
Yeah.
Nick, not so much.
Not so much. And that's why, if you have concerns,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to talk to a professional.
Right. A podiatrist.
A podiatrist, a
Yeah.
physical therapist.
Yeah.
They can, really assess your individual needs.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what works for one person,
Exactly.
it might be a disaster for somebody else.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, this is a lot
It's a lot.
to consider.
Yeah.
We've got potential benefits, we've got risks.
Right.
We need to transition carefully,
Yeah.
strengthen our feet,
Right.
pay attention.
Yeah.
So how do we bring this all together?
Right.
How does our listener use this information
Right.
to make good choices about their own feet?
Right. Well, and I think that's such a good point. It's really about your own 2 feet.
Right.
It's not about following the latest trend. It's not about,
Yeah.
what works for your friend or,
Right.
what you read online.
Right. So we've talked about the potential benefits, the risks,
Right.
the importance of transitioning gradually,
Yeah.
strengthening your feet, listening to your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But I think if there's one thing that, we can all agree on, it's that there's no one size fits all, right?
Absolutely not. No. And I think that's such an important takeaway. Like, it's so easy to get caught up
Right.
in the hype. Right. Whatever the hype may be, whether it's from minimalist shoes or even the latest high-tech super cushion shoe. It's like
Right.
everyone wants to tell you what the best thing is.
Right.
But ultimately, the best shoes are the ones that work for you,
This is true.
that allow you to move comfortably, safely,
Right.
based on your needs, your activity level,
It makes sense.
all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where do we go from here?
Right.
How does somebody listening,
Mhm.
how do they use this information
Yeah.
to actually make some decisions?
I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
Start paying attention to your feet.
Yeah.
How do they feel
In your current shoes.
in your current
Yeah.
shoes? Yeah. Are you having any discomfort, any pain? Do you feel restricted?
Interesting.
If so, it might be worth exploring some different options. And it doesn't even necessarily mean going full barefoot. It could just mean
Right.
trying a shoe with a wider toe box.
Right.
Or a more flexible sole, just something.
So it's more about thinking about your feet
Yes.
rather than what's the,
Exactly.
flat shoe trend.
Exactly. It's not about the trend.
Yeah.
It's about what does your body need?
Yeah, and I think that's true of so much of what we talk about on this show, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's we can give you the information.
Yeah.
We can, kind of
Give you the tools.
give you the tools, point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you're in charge of your own.
You know your body best.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're not sure, talk to someone who can help you. Like you were saying,
Right.
a podiatrist, a physical
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah, they can give you that personalized advice
Exactly.
because it is so individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. I feel like there's so much more to learn.
Always.
Always more to learn.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great start. This is a great place for people to start thinking about their feet, thinking about their shoes. So thank you so much for, taking this deep dive with me. And to all of her listeners out there, until next time, we'll see you later.